Good afternoon. Welcome to a quick little video looking forward towards basically Cheltenham Trials Day. Decent enough racing. I actually haven't opened up the entries yet, but I've seen a few names banded about on Twitter. I'm going to look briefly at Doncaster as well. There is some nice action all across the board. Now, there's been some delayed fixtures in Ireland that will come out nicely this week. There's some handy races over there anyway, but this is focused on Saturday for Trials Day more than anything. So without further ado, let's just jump straight in. As I say, I've seen a few bits on Twitter about horses that have been entered up, but this is fresh look, first look for me. I think it's important that when I'm doing these, well, for now anyway, we'll see what the feedback is, that it is my first initial reaction. I don't want to be arming myself up with bits left, right and centre before I jump in. So we know that the ground is slow at Cheltenham now. Obviously there's snow on there. That's obviously going to melt and soak into the ground somewhat. It's going to be heavy, I think. Both Cheltenham and Doncaster are pretty confident they're going to get away with racing this weekend. But I think that might have an impact on the entries at Cheltenham as it is. Now, Nassalam, Gary Moore did say that this is where Nassalam was going to come. Obviously beaten at Chepstow. You wouldn't really want to be seeing that in terms of a triumph contender, but let's go see what he does here. At least it's a level of yardstick, at least. Sage Advice was a nice winner for Dr. Richard Newland a little while ago. That was his first time up. Well worthy of going into this company. Heroes to Sills, the interesting one, because Nicky Henderson's had this horse entered up in lots of races. Also entered up in lots of just novice hurdles as opposed to juvenile. So we can see he's got an entry Friday at Huntingdon as well. Same at Doncaster. So yeah, don't want to read into it too much, but there is potential that with this horse, maybe the fact that Donnelly bought French Azil, maybe they're thinking split it up, Supreme horse. Who knows? We'll just have to see what happens with their horses. They obviously have other types that could go bits and places. The difficulty with this horse is there's dispute about whether it would have won at Kempton that first time up or not. So we need to see that go again. But it's had lots of entries, so clearly ready, firing to go. Good ball for Paul Nicholls is another interesting one that goes out. There was some form line with this and another horse that ran not so long ago. There you go, T-Up-O. That went over and won in Ireland, didn't it, when Umdor for Willie Mullins fell at the last. So, yeah. Boodles-ish type horses, maybe. Adagio obviously did win that race at Chepstow, the finale juvenile. It's interesting to see him go back round here again. Obviously, course and distance winner, but has been beating it. I mean, look, the general consensus at the moment, the general feeling is that but the British juveniles look a bit behind. Just be interesting to see the final declaration of this. But looks a steady enough race, to be fair, and with the bad ground, things like Nassalam that maybe want a bog. Adagio obviously handles it well. Good Ball's got the French form in it. Probably actually doesn't really take away from this race the ground, so that's not too bad. Novices Handicap Chase. This would be one that I'd need to take a deeper look into, sort of maybe as the week goes on, get a bit of a feel for each horse, where they've entered up, what they might be doing. But it's a really interesting race nonetheless. It's a 2.5 miler. There'll be some potentials in there. JP's got quite a few entered. I mean, just jumping off the bat for some names that are in there, Eden DeHoo dropping back in triple be interesting enough. 127 still too low for him, I think. So in me saying that, I think he potentially can win races off those sorts of marks. Hold the Note as well. How's that still a novice? Sully Dock, one that I like. Slow ground, maybe this would have been a sort of race that I've been thinking towards. The mark's probably a little bit too high up now. But yeah, again, another one that looks a steady enough race. Normally this might be a pointer towards the Close Brothers, which is no longer in existence, but it could be a point towards the Brown Advisory stable plate as well. So maybe JP having those horses in there could be a side little clue. But again, bad ground, maybe not so much of a clue towards the festival as it might have been before. Grade 3 Handicap Chase, nice to see some big names in there. Caribbean Boy, very interesting given he did what he did on better ground at Newbury, when they say that he really wants the bad ground. That was when his good performance came up from the season prior. They were thinking probably Ryan Ayrish horse. He only lost his novice status late last year, didn't he? That form there, small field, obviously they're saying never travelling. That was back on the bad ground. At least we know Dashwood Rash has gone and sort of kind of not really franked the form, but gone out on one since after. So who knows? Got to have a look around Cheltenham a minute before they decide what they're going to do with it. So that's nice to see. Eden DeHoo's in this race as well. So this is going up against all the kids. The perk, I suppose, for Pipe entering in both those races is the fact that he would get in off of carrying a lighter weight. Now, the caveat with that is it'll be 11 stone 12 for the top weight, and then there's only, £26 you can go down beneath that. So 153 would be as high as he'd want someone in, and there's slightly higher horses. So he'd be out of the handicap technically. Sunny Doc, similar sort of things in there again, probably looking for a lighter weight. But that looks a nice enough race, to be fair to it. Mr. Whitaker's in there. Old Gret. There's lots of course and distance winners in there, isn't there? Decent. So the Cotswold Chase. Don't really want to go over this sort of stuff over and again because I don't really think anyone cares. But Henderson gets such a rubbish time of it. Changing his plans, do all that sort of stuff. At the end of the day, it's his prerogative to do what he wants to do. The fact that they want to open up and they want to talk to people, okay, fair enough. It's nice that we hear it, but someone like Willie Mullins keeps a bit quieter, and there's less things to worry about, less concerns if horses aren't where they're supposed to be going. Champ's going Denman Chase, apparently, is where we're thinking he's going. Obviously, he held that Stayers Hurdle entry as well, so it's not completely right off that maybe they want to sit out the Gold Cup this year. I don't think they would, but you don't know. Santini won this race last year. Clearly looked the one to be coming to this type of race, and especially considering the ground, although it's described as soft at the moment up here, it's going to be a bog. That's why you get the likes of Yalarenka that's been up again, so that'll be 3 runs in as many weeks pretty much, won't it? That'll be some effort. Bristol De Mai will probably love the bad ground at Cheltenham, so maybe that's something that could help out. Native River, fantastic to see him in there. Looks a nice race. There's a few of these horses that are also ended up at Doncaster as well, likes of York Hill, so we'll see where they actually end up. Now, this is a race that I would be interested to see what's in, and again, like I say, I didn't look at them before. So this is the Grade 2, the Classic Novice Hurdle. This is quite a nice race because I think I've done it historically, where horses that have run in this, normally the one that wins it, tends to go on to an Albert Bartlett, and the one that runs is like the one that's beaten, and it maybe goes Ballymore. Black Ops Santini recently at Fisher's Cross, and the new one, they won their respective races. So there's more to find out in this race than necessarily just the winner, but it depends how the performance goes, of course. Lecal's article, flashing that tail at Newbury the last time. Lots of talk saying that it wasn't going to go to Cheltenham because it was a chaser for this future and all that sort of stuff. I think now that Henderson's Novices have fallen apart a bit, it sounds like he is going to be going towards the Ballymore, so obviously interesting. Standard progression from having that long layoff and the flashy of the tail calming down. If his attitude's calm and that tail's not flashing this time round, then there's still a staggering amount of improvement to come from this horse, I would suspect. And then there's just some interesting ones in there. Now, Bumpy Johnson's been entered all over the shop and been withdrawn on quite a few occasions. Ground, I think there's been abandoned meetings as well. Mostly ground. I think he got a vet's cert on his last run. I think he actually suffered a knock. So they wouldn't have been aiming him for a Grade 2 is basically what I'm trying to say. But he's got an entry here. Maybe they just want to get a run into him at some point. You've just got a lot of horses here that are on winning streaks. Bear Gills, Bob Hope or No Hope. Fernhill's even notched up a couple in a spin. Wilder Oscar did obviously pull up the last day, but form before that looked like it was okay. So, I mean, this looks a fairly steady race. I like Optimised Prime a bit anyway. Whether he can step up to this level, I'm not 100% sure. He was in the Leamington Novices Hurdle and then didn't actually run. It'd be interesting this. Looks like it's a fairly steady enough race. I feel like Ballymore, we kind of know what's going on there. And unless Lecal's article was really, really impressive here, and as I say, settled down, you'd think we could be finding out more, maybe Albert Bartlett clues here. But I mean, looks a steady enough race. With those Albert Bartlett clues, there is a race at Doncaster on the Saturday, which we'll come on to shortly as well, the River Don. Then we've got the Cleeve Hurdle. Now, Paisley Park, Emma Lavelle said straight after Ascot she wasn't sure if he needed to go to there. We'll see how he recovers. Maybe the fact that Time Hill said he wasn't coming here swayed her a little bit. I reiterate this all the time. This will be the furthest distance that the final flight is from the finish line. It's over a furlong out. And then when it gets to the actual Cheltenham Festival, they're well inside the finish of the race. So it's a completely different discipline. I know it's still hurdling, but I mean the fact that from that final flight to the finish line, there's a lot of time to gather yourself. You can get away with making mistakes. We've seen lots of horses have made mistakes and win over this sort of trip. So it'll be interesting. You would expect Paisley to hack up in here. I mean, the ground's not going to really potentially bother him. It would be great to see him go back to Cheltenham where the heart issue was caused. It shouldn't have any ramifications at all, but I would still rather see him have a spin around Cheltenham before the festival, just in case for any reason he does get a bit worked up. It's just a tiny box that doesn't really need to be ticked, but I would prefer to see it ticked. You know what I mean, Harry, grand old servant. In this instance, I think he might get away with getting some weight in here, but he's 13 and he shouldn't be able to be winning this. And then obviously Main Fact struck up that massive sequence, was well held the last day behind Paisley. All in all, it's just Paisley to win, isn't it? So you'd like to see him go and do it quite nicely, I think. And we got Handicap Hurdle. This is only a 2-mile Handicap Hurdle. It's an okay-ish race over the years. It wouldn't be one that I'd be getting too excited about at this juncture. Monsieur Lecoq, I think he needs to drop down a bit in his mark. Time flies by. I pray that he comes in this, because he's never really done anything since that bumper debut at Cheltenham, Class 2, where he beat Butte Montana, was very eye-catching. That was horrible ground. Standing water, everything I think was on there. Even the run after behind Israel Champ looked fairly decent. Then they tried him over hurdles, lose your novice status if you're going to in a graded race. Then he was just poor round here at Cheltenham. That was the race where King Roland blew up a bit, didn't he? Twice gone back to Ascot, where he ran poorly over hurdles on his first debut. So regardless of the fact that he was going up against nice horses, let's not forget that he was poor at Ascot. Okay, they've had him a couple more spins round there. The more recent one, which was in a handicap, I took a bit of a flyer on him, just thinking maybe, who knows, something can happen with him. But I just wonder whether they know that maybe that track might not be his favourite. I don't know, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I still think off a 128 this horse has got chances. So I'd like to see him run. Whether I'm just going to do my money on him or not, I don't know. But I really want to see him run in dead ground at Cheltenham again. So Time Flies By jumps out for me of the handicaps on first glance. So we're going to move over to Doncaster. Just again, I don't want to talk about this for too long. Another interesting race on the Saturday will be the Solarina Mares Novice Hurdle over in Ireland. That's where I'm expecting Gal Louise to go up against Royal Kahala. Hopefully Gal Louise goes and gets the job done. Patrick Mullins' comments didn't fill me with confidence that she was necessarily as much of a potential worldie as I thought she might be. So that would just be a nice result to see anyway. Look at the going report at Doncaster. Frozen. Lovely. They think they're going to go ahead, so we'll be fine. I'm not going to bother with the handicaps on this one. I'm going to just look at the nicer races. So we've got the Lightning Novices Chase. We have got Shishkin in here. Now, you'll remember that... what's his face? All Mankind for Dan Skeltons. They said they'd be happy to take on Shishkin. They're not afraid of going in near him. That obviously hasn't happened here. There's not entered probably the ground more than anything for him, although he does handle a bit of soft, doesn't he? Eldorado Allen was very good on his Chase debut. Kind of expected that he would be capable of doing that sort of stuff, but he's still an interesting entry that's in here. Samurai de Matan was very good on handicap debut, but I think he's a bit found out of this, potentially this level in terms of looking at Shishkin and everything else. He could potentially be competitive in there. So yeah, I mean, it's Shishkin's race to lose if he runs on this. You don't know how the ground's really going to end up, but it'd be great to see him out. Then we've got the Yorkshire Rose Mares Hurdle. Used to be all about Lady Buttons in this race, didn't it? Be interesting to see what happens here. Now, Marie's Rock was one that I suggested, just purely speculative, that she could have an outside chance in a Mares Hurdle. Hasn't even got an entry for that. Was poor at Cheltenham. I mean, at Newbury, couldn't really jump at all. So interesting to see her in here, and again, back at 2 miles. Needs her jumping to improve quite a bit for that. Will Victory's a very, very nice mare, but she just seems to be coming up against stuff. On figures, it doesn't look like the most worldy of a race, does it? Floressa would probably be interesting for Nicky Henderson, but it wouldn't be a race I'd be getting excited about or potentially looking for punting in. The Albert Bartlett River Don, now I did mention this race. It's not normally a race that will pick out an Albert Bartlett winner, I'll be honest with you, but it's a nice race, and I think from a punting perspective, there's going to be some opportunities to get stuck in it. The ratings of these horses you'll see, I always say that this race, if you get a 140s horse, or a horse that's capable of running to a 140, they will dot up in this race. And again, from the entries, you can see 135 is the top rated we've got in here. Now, there will be penalties for certain horses in here, so I don't want to go through those right now, but Bob Hope or No Hope, that was obviously ended up at Cheltenham, Fernhill, that was obviously ended up at Cheltenham. There's views here, isn't there, that horses could be coming this side rather than going to Cheltenham. One that's semi-interesting for me is Exploiter. I did obviously go to Graham McPherson before. We talked about this race, Graham and I, just for the fact that this horse loves dead ground and stays on nicely. He likes the long straight. I feel like this would be a track that would probably suit him. Now, you can see he has run here before. Never a threat, held up, pushed along, but that was all the way back at 2 miles. So line through that, and I don't think really the bare result, you look at the distances and stuff like that, didn't really run worse than expectations, probably run a little bit better, to be honest. Now, Keelan's booked up for Ben Case's horse Fernhill here, so maybe Lily Pinchin would go for Graham McPherson. I don't know whether he comes here or not. I'm not 100% sure, but he'd be one that I'd be semi-interested in anyway. And then there'll be a few other ones that are semi-interesting as well, like Flash Collonge for Paul Nicholls. Big name. It sounds like an obvious one, but I think that's probably a better horse than he's shown up to now. So steady enough looking race. Skybet Handicap Chase. I don't want to talk about this for too long, but Captain Orr, because of the line through Royal Pagali, it's going to be short. If you're not already on him, then you probably want to look to take him on. Saying that, if a handicap's good thing's a good thing, then should I be telling people to go elsewhere? Probably not. So I'm going to wrap this up now because I didn't want to whittle and talk about this for too long. It's just my first thoughts, and it's just a quick skim over stuff that's happening this weekend. There will obviously be pointers towards Cheltenham. Things are starting to ramp up and sort of level off at the moment now, because we've got this weekend of decent racing. And we've got next weekend is the Dublin Racing Festival, and then it won't be long till after that we're going to have the Adonis, the Dovecote, and then pretty much from there the hands will have been shown. Now, I think the novice hurdle entries are closing tomorrow, so Tuesday. We'll find out about them Wednesday. So interesting to see which horses are taken out of there that we were hoping were going to be seen, and horses that have multiple entries. Lots of stuff going on, and it's starting to ramp up. But although the ground is pretty poor at Cheltenham this weekend, and it may not necessarily point us as strongly to winners at the festival as it might have done in previous years, let's not forget we could get a really bad ground festival, so this could be very relevant. And in their own right, these races this weekend look decent, and I think there'll be some punting opportunities in there. So I'll do a special video this weekend previewing Cheltenham specifically, and I'll chuck in some other best bets for the weekend. If I can get any of the other boys involved on that, then happy days. If not, happy to do it on my own and put my neck on the line, because there will be a few bets for me this weekend. Be lucky, appreciate your support. If you've got this far through, please make sure you are subscribed, like the video, and any comments below are appreciated too.